What's up everyone, and welcome back to the Comms channel. Today's video will be the start of another video series. This series is going to be on building your own Digipeater from A to Z running on this inexpensive Linux device here. So hang around and we'll dig into it.
US Air Force on guard, aircraft 4 miles west of Baybridge Airport.
Okay, I'll be back in 6 seconds.
We're approaching a restricted area. Restricted area is 1 mile west.
For this build, due to the Raspberry Pi still being hard to find, we'll be using this device that is very similar to one and is capable of running Raspbian, which is what the Raspberry Pis run. There is a website called rpilocator.com that can help you find a Raspberry Pi. Your best bet is to follow them on Twitter and turn on notifications. However, when they do tweet that a vendor has a Raspberry Pi available, you have to be really quick as they typically sell out within 3 to 4 minutes. So, while not completely unavailable, they're still pretty hard to get, and that is why we're going with the alternative called Le Potato, which I just can't stand that name for some reason, so we'll just call it Tater from here on out. If you do manage to get a Raspberry Pi using Raspberry Pi Locator or however you can find one, or if you already have one, you can still follow along with this video as well, since the process will work on either one. I'll be making this as easy to follow as possible for those that have never done this before. I've started a GitHub page with an easy to follow set of instructions and made a script to install everything for you. Once you get the operating system installed and the device booted up, all you'll need to do is run this single command to install Direwolf and all its dependencies. Then from there, it's a simple editing of the Direwolf config file to fit your needs, which I will also walk you through. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we'll start off with getting into what hardware you're going to need. First thing you'll need is the computer board. Now there's a 2 gig model and 1 gig model. Be sure to get the 2 gig model. So that's the board that you'll need. You also need a way to power it. The recommended way to power it is going to be the standard Raspberry Pi 3 power supply. If you do have a power supply for another device laying around with micro USB, just make sure it's at least 2.5 amps or greater. Next, you'll need a micro SD card to flash the operating system on. Now they recommend getting ones that say A1 on them, so make sure you get one with A1. And I'll include links in the video description for all this stuff here. Now as far as the SD card size, you can probably get by with 8 gig, but that's pretty hard to come by nowadays, so you'll probably either want to go with 16 or 32. Anything over 32 isn't supported actually. You would have to do partitioning to make it work. So sticking with 16 or 32 is the best bet. And if you don't have one already, you'll need a SD card reader. If you have a laptop, it likely already has one built in. But if you're doing this on a desktop and you don't have one of these, you'll need one of these. Next device you'll need is a Digirig. This is what will interface between your radio and the computer board. This is what we're currently using at the Digipeater site that's currently hooked up to a TYT 9000. And then this is plugged into a Raspberry Pi. So you'll need the Digirig and of course a cable for your specific radio. You'll basically just want to search for Digirig and whatever radio you got, search for Yaesu cable. And you'll see various different cables for different radios. So if you can find the cable for your specific radio on the Mobile Link site that Digirig does not have, that video I made on the adapter, that works both ways. I made that adapter so I can use a Digirig cable with my TNC4 on my Yaesu that Mobile Link does not have a cable for, but that works both ways. So if you find a cable on Mobile Link site that Digirig doesn't have available, you can also make one of those converters and be able to use that. So yeah, so that is all of the hardware that you'll need. And again, I'll include links in the video description to all this stuff. Alright, so on my GitHub page, I have step-by-step instructions on going through this process. That's what we'll do on the video here. We pretty much already went through the prep section, talked about I guess we didn't really talk about a computer, but you'll need a computer to flash the operating system on. Then of course the Tater board, the power supply for it, and you'll need an Ethernet cable to connect the device to your network. And we talked about the SD card and SD card reader. You'll also need a way to connect to your network via Wi-Fi, and we'll be using an app called Fing, which is available for both Android and iPhone. And what this Fing app does, it'll scan the network, and what we need to do is figure out the IP address of your Tater board. But let's go ahead and get started with the downloading and flashing section. So first thing we'll need to do is download the Raspbian image, and that can be found here. Tater board has a specific model number, and that is AML S905XCC. So when you go on this page, you'll want to look for that image here, and here it is, S905XCC. So this is the one we want to download. Okay, once that's done downloading, let's go back to the instructions here. So, got that downloaded. Got the right image downloaded. The next thing we'll need is to download and install the Raspberry Pi imager, and that can be found at this link here. If you scroll on down, you'll see download for Windows, or if you're on Mac, you'll see download for Mac. So we'll get that downloaded as well. Let's open this up. Just hit yes on that, and let's go through the install process, and once that's done, just make sure that is checked and you can hit finish there. So once you got the Raspberry Pi imager open, go to choose storage. Now do this before you go and insert your SD card. And as you can see here, nothing's showing up for me, so I'll go ahead and insert my SD card now. So we got that in. Now we see that this drive E is showing up, so you'll just want to remember that. In my case, it's easy because nothing else is showing up, but if you have other devices that show up here, you want to make sure you remember which one shows up when you plug it in, because you could potentially select the wrong thing and delete whatever you have on whatever other drive is showing up. So make sure you get the correct drive selected. So once we've taken note of that, we can go to choose OS, scroll on down to use custom, and you want to navigate to where you downloaded that image. So you'll see here we have the Raspbian version for our device here. So go ahead and select that, and we can go back to storage and select our E drive, or whatever drive it is in your case. So once you've got those ready, you can go to the gear. Now you'll see these other options. This unfortunately does not work on the Tater device. This only works on actual Raspberry Pi devices, so don't mess with any of this stuff because it just won't go through. So in this screen here, you just want to uncheck eject media when finished if it's checked, and you can leave these others unchecked as well. Then hit save there. Now we can go ahead and write. Just hit yes on this. Okay, so that is complete, and you can hit continue there. Now if you remember this stuff in the gear, you can set the host name, enable SSH, and set a username and password and stuff like that. Again, that only works on Raspberry Pi. since we're not using a Raspberry Pi, we'll have to do that part manually, but luckily it's not really difficult. So we can go ahead and close this now. And if you go to open up a new one here, if you go to your file explorer here, you'll want to look for the drive here. We see boot and E. In my case, it's an E drive. So first thing we'll do is create the or enable SSH. So to do that, you basically just need to create a file on here named SSH. Now it's important that it does not have a file extension like you can see here, .txt. We need to get rid of that. So what we should have here is just a file that says just SSH, and you won't see that lines or whatever on it. You'll just see that. Now, by default, Windows is set up to not show file extensions, so you may see SSH and it may actually have .txt on it, but it's just hidden. So what you'll want to do first actually is go to options. Well, I'm on Windows 11 here. I know not everyone will be on Windows 11 probably. So to get to that window, just go to the start menu, type in file. Yeah, let me start over. File Explorer. Start typing in File Explorer and you'll see File Explorer options. So go there and that'll take you to that window here. Then you'll need to go to View and you'll see Hide Extensions for known file types. That is likely checked and you'll want to uncheck that. I'm going to check that to show you what I'm talking about. So for the common file types like a text document, this used to say issue.txt, but now it's gone. So if you run into that, just go and change the File Explorer options. Then go to View and uncheck Hide Extensions for known file types. Then you'll see SSH should not have anything on the end of it, and this should be an empty file. So I'll just go over it again real quick. You just right click on the empty area there, go to new text document, just type in SSH and get rid of that .txt on the end there. And you can hit yes on that. On that window that just popped up, if that pops up, then you know you're doing it right. The next thing we'll need to do is, so we just went through the enable SSH steps. The next steps we'll need to do is create a user. To do that, we'll need to create a text document named userconf.txt. So let me copy that. So we'll just go in here and new text document, and we'll paste that name in there, get rid of that extra .txt. So userconf.txt is what you want in there. Now, I know we got rid of the .txt on the SSH file, that's fine, but this one we'll want to keep it on there. So once you got that file created, we'll open that up. So to make the user, this file needs to contain a single line. And that single line is going to contain the username, which in this case is Joe. You can change that to whatever you want to use. And then this is actually an encrypted password. So this password actually says Digipeater. So leave that as is once you paste it in there, but change Joe to whatever you want. So I'm gonna change this to, I'll just call it Kevin. All right, so you want your username, whatever you want your username to be, and then colon, and then leave this encrypted password the same. Once you got that in there, you can hit save. Yep, so we are ready to take this out of the computer. Before doing that, right click on the drive and hit eject. And now you can go ahead and pop that SD card into the computer board there, and go ahead and hook that up to your network using an Ethernet cable. Then you'll go ahead and give it power. Now when you plug it in, you should see 3 lights, a blue, green, and red. If you only see blue and red, then it's not booting up properly and something went wrong. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is figure out the IP address of your device there. Now, to do that, you'll open up Fing, and again, that's available for Android and iPhone. I'm doing this on Android. I don't know how much it differs on the iPhone, but hopefully you'll be able to follow along. Hopefully it's close enough to where you can follow along. So that will scan all the devices on your network. Now you'll see I do have some Raspberry Pi devices, but since this device, at least the Tater device here, is not a Raspberry Pi, it will not say Raspberry on it. In my case, it just says generic. Mine is this 192.168.1.81. Now, if you have a ton of devices on your network, you may want to run this scan first before you plug in the device, and then look for a new device that pops up. So once you find that device, just take note of the IP address, which in my case it's 192.168.1.81. Alright, so now that we know the IP address of the device, we can SSH into it, which is basically getting a remote command prompt on the device. So to do that, I know I'm on Windows 11, but I believe this will work on Windows 10. If you go to Start and type in Terminal, you should have this Terminal app show up. Okay, so with the terminal open, we are ready to SSH into the device, and to do that, in the instructions here, you can see this example. Here we're running the SSH command and using the username of Joe, and then at this IP address. And this IP address is going to be the IP address of your device that you found in Fing. So in my case, the username I created was Kevin, so we're going to do that, and then the at, and then 192.168.1. Let's try dots this time. 192.168.1.81. So you'll get this pop up. You can just type in yes for that and hit enter. And here's where you're going to enter in the password, and that's going to be, if you remember, Digipeater. So let's type in Digipeater there, and now we're logged in to the. It says Raspberry Pi, but that's just the host name. This is actually the Tater device, but yeah, we're remotely logged into it, and we can run commands. Now, the first command you're going to want to run is one to change the default password I created there, which is currently Digipeater, but you'll want to change that to whatever password you want. So to do that, you're just going to type in passwd and then hit enter. And that's going to ask you to enter in the current password, which is Digipeater, and then enter in a new password. Alright, so now you've changed that password. So now if we exit out of here and you can hit the up button to bring all that stuff you typed back up. Now when we log in, we can use that new password. And there we are. Alright, so now that we're logged in, that will do it for this video. I mainly wanted to go over the hardware you needed, get the device booted up and on the network and to the point where you're logged into it. I know this video is probably going to be long enough as it is, so I will end this video here. And then the next video is going to be the installing and configuring Direwolf. Hopefully you found this video informative and easy to follow so you can get your very own Digipeater on the air. If you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you all and have a good one.